All right, I think we are good to get started, and I will kick us off. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight's webinar. We're going to be discussing the gathering at South Forsyth and the upcoming referendum on November 5th on the general election ballot and what you're going to be seeing. My name is Sharon Goldmacher. I am the communications representative for the gathering at South Forsyth. I'll be managing tonight's webinar, and I'm joined by my team member, Megan Stoneburner, and she'll be helping to field questions. So let me start by introducing our speakers. Tonight with us, we have Vernon Krause, Forsyth County Commissioner Laura Semanson, and James McCoy. Mr. Krause is the CEO of Krause Sports and Entertainment and the developer of the gathering at South Forsyth, which is going to be about a $4 billion mixed-use development in the county. Commissioner Laura Semanson represents District 5, where the project is located. And Mr. McCoy is the president and CEO of the Forsyth County Chamber of Commerce. So each of these folks bring a very unique perspective to tonight's webinar, and it's really focused on education. So just a note, we're going to try and go through this really quickly. I'll give a brief project overview, and then we'll dive into questions on the ballot. Just a few reminders, you can put your questions. You should see at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A feature, and you can post your questions there. Megan will be making sure that she's kind of taking care of that feature for us so we can go right through. We are recording the webinar, and we'll make the recording available on the gathering at South Forsyth's website, along with answers to the questions. If we don't have time at the end to answer any live questions, we'll make sure all the questions and answers are posted. So just to get started, as a reminder, in March of this year, Forsyth County signed a memorandum of understanding, or what's called an MOU. And that was to commit $225 million in support of the gathering project. The project actually will cost upwards, as I mentioned, of about $4 billion, but the majority of that will be privately financed. I think from what we understand, the MOU, the county saw the benefit of investing in this project, since ultimately they'll own the arena once it's complete and will benefit from the taxes that will be generated for the county and for the Forsyth County school system. So the November 5th ballot question is not a referendum on if the project moves forward or not. It is simply how the $225 million contribution in bonds will be repaid by the county. So let me give a quick overview of the project. Mr. Krause has been a long-time Forsyth. Oops, sorry, I've already gone too far. He's been a long-time Forsyth County resident, over 30 years, and he had a dream. He really wanted to create a world-class entertainment hub in Forsyth County. The gathering at South Forsyth at full build-out, you can see on the screen. This will take about 10 years to get to full build-out, but this is the mix of commercial and retail and residential that will be on the property. The project site itself, I'm sure you're all aware, but is located on about 100 acres that's currently empty. It's generating relatively minimal revenue, but that revenue is currently going to the county and the school system. And that will continue as the property is being developed. So it is not that taxes will stop, not at all. The revenue that is already being generated will continue to go to the county and the school system. But the site is conveniently located between exits 11 and 12, right off of Georgia 400. And with the express lanes that are being planned by the Georgia Department of Transportation, there will be a new managed lane right on Union Hill that will exit directly into the property. So much like the Battery, there will be multiple ingress and egress points coming in and out of the property, which will make it a perfect location. The benefits of the gathering at South Forsyth really will be tremendous, from job creation to increased tourism to really creating a wonderful amenity for the community. As I mentioned, the county is investing $225 million in the project. Now we're going to dive into the explanation on the referendum and how it will appear on the ballot. And we're going to cover 3 areas. So 1, we're going to cover authorizing redevelopment powers for the county. 2, we're going to talk about creating a tax allocation district. And 3, we're going to cover how the gathering at South Forsyth will pay for itself with no tax on residents. So this slide shows what the ballot question will look like on your ballot on November 5th. The redevelopment question, the redevelopment powers question will be the very last item on the ballot. So my first question will go to Commissioner Semanson. This referendum, as we mentioned, it's not a vote for or against the project, but for how the committed contribution will be repaid. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. So, and I think that's one of the things that is, it's hard to condense a very complex proposal in legalese on a ballot. And so I think it's really important that people get an opportunity to understand what redevelopment powers and the TAD are and what they're not. The gathering MOU is already in place. We actually made some tweaks to it last week, bringing in and binding the agreements from the Development Authority and the school to make sure that the school was satisfied with the agreement. And so those will actually be ratified tomorrow night at our meeting, but they were approved last Tuesday. So that part of it is really separate from what redevelopment powers are. And I know James probably has studied this subject matter a lot more than I have, but I've gotten super familiar with it myself over the course of the last, probably year and a half. And it is a tool. So granting redevelopment powers, it is a very common thing throughout the state of Georgia. They're in cities and counties across the state. And basically it allows the local government to be a participant in the redevelopment of certain parcels within their jurisdiction. And so the importance of the TAD really is that is an element that we can do to provide an extra layer of protection for our existing taxpayers here, so that the development then funds all of the debt that the county is investing into it. So it's not the same thing as a GO bond where, if you've seen, transportation bonds or other things that have been proposed, those are general obligation bonds. They're very different. This is a tax allocation district, which will allow our development authority to bond the project and to drive revenue from within the boundaries of the project only to be used to defease that debt.
Commissioner Semanson, if I can interrupt for a second.
Sure.
If we can talk a little bit about redevelopment powers and how they work exactly, and if there are, some benefits to authorizing redevelopment powers for the county.
There are. So our state delegation actually passed local legislation for us to be able to present this to the voters, to put this out for the voters. But part of what is always the missing link is that explanation of what they're being asked to support or not support. And as an elected official, I don't advocate one way or the other, but I will tell you that redevelopment powers are not something unusual. They're very common in the state, but they do allow us to identify certain parcels that we want to see developed a certain way, and we will have skin in the game. But it doesn't put that, it allows us to construct that in a manner that does not have a funding mechanism that comes from the people. It's all driven by the taxes off of that parcel. So for instance, you alluded to it earlier, the taxes that have always been collected on that property, they will actually reassess that property and establish a baseline. Those taxes will continue to go to the schools. They will continue to go to the county to provide services. It's that delta between where the base value is and that that growth of the value over time that the county will be able to reinvest to pay down our investment. So there still are revenue streams that are coming off of the project that are still benefiting the greater county in terms of that base tax, that base property tax. There are also personal property taxes that will, for all of the businesses that are within the district. So any of you who are business owners are aware of what those are in terms of all of the equipment and things that are taxable. Those revenues still come. The revenues for sales tax. So sales tax revenues are still going to be generated. It's all put together over the course of time. It amounts to, once the debt has been defeased, it amounts to about a $40 million a year contribution to the county and schools coffers, which will provide a tremendous benefit to our taxpayers in terms of us being able to continue to deliver the services and amenities that they want to see in this community. It's a long-term play. It's not, a lot of times we'll have big parcels and they chop them into little pieces and it's very ad hoc and you don't have that kind of sense of master planning. This accomplishes that.
Okay. So as the bottom of this slide indicates, we've talked a little bit about the tax allocation district, but creating a tax allocation district will help to launch the project. And I wanted to ask Mr. McCoy if he could also kind of detail a little bit of what a tax allocation is and really how it will work, for the community.
Sure. Well, Commissioner Semanson did an outstanding job of really giving a great outline of that. I think I don't know about everybody else, but the moment you hear the word tax, you sort of start to worry. But really, in this particular case, it's really good news in that a tax allocation district, it absolutely does not. It does not put a tax on residents. It is not a tax on homeowners. And really it provides some security to make sure that in that district, that what happens in that district in terms of the funding for it stays right there to pay that debt off. So Commissioner, just to echo what Commissioner Semanson was saying, really, the taxes that are being paid now, they get, capped at that certain amount of value. And then as that value increases, the incremental difference in that goes into a special fund, and that special fund is what pays off the debt, not hitting the homeowner or the general obligation debt at all. So, as Commissioner Semanson mentioned, probably for most people in the community, I think a really important point for them is that this is a much less expensive way for us to accomplish the exact same goal. There are many communities across the state that have this, and so it really does put us in a position where we can do things a little more freely to be able to get to the desired outcome. And they're very powerful tools, but the school system and the county are not negatively impacted in that we aren't giving up those taxes that are coming in now.
Commissioner Semanson, did you?
Yeah, I think that that James, you hit the nail right on the head. But I think one of the things people do, they are fearful when they see the word tax, and this may seem a little bit simplistic, but in the term tax allocation district, the district is really what we're talking about. Allocation is then how we're going to be able to take and use the tax dollars within that district. So it's neither a new tax on our citizens, and it's not a different tax on the property owners within the gathering. It is simply that incremental improvement or increase, I shouldn't say improvement, that incremental increase over the improvements that are made on the property that will be utilized that way. And once that debt is extinguished, that money goes back to the general funds. So It's really taxes. Taxes is what we're allocating within a district. It's not a new tax for neither the gathering nor the citizens at large. And
So it might be helpful. We've got on the next slide, we've got an illustration that shows a red outline. This is the property at the gathering at full build out. So again, remember 10 years down the road, but that red outline is the tax allocation district. So what's inside the red line is the TAD, as it's called. And I wanted to ask Mr. Krause, as we've talked about, kind of what does it mean for a yes vote? So if people get to the ballot, they see, do they vote yes or no for the redevelopment powers? What does a yes vote mean?
Okay, well, thank you, Sharon, and you know, absolutely what we're asking people for is a yes vote. And that yes vote means that the land that's inside of that red that I hopefully everybody can see, it's roughly 100-acre parcel. That's the only piece of property within the county that's being affected. No other pieces of property, no other property within Forsyth County is affected, only that 100 acres.
And so we talked about that residents will not be taxed. We just want to be clear about that. It is really the future taxes that are generated on the 100 acres that's within that red line. That's where the investment will be repaid from that difference. And then, as mentioned again, once the bond is repaid, then all of the estimated taxes, which, as Commissioner Semanson pointed out, will include hotel motel tax, arena fees, property taxes, and taxes on the businesses within the district. All of that will go to the county and to the school system. So I thought, as we're getting close to wrapping up, I thought it might be helpful to pull this slide up again, but this version has an inset slide. And so what you're seeing at the bottom is the entire county is outlined. It's a very large county, as you are aware. And the gathering is that small orange dot at the south end. And that project will pay for itself within that large expanse of the county. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone kind of understood exactly where it was located and the size relative to the size of the county. So as we wrap up, I thought I would just go down the line and see if Mr. McCoy, Commissioner Semanson, and Mr. Krause had additional thoughts that they wanted to share. I'll start with Mr. McCoy.
You know, I think the only thing that I don't believe was mentioned is that the vote on redevelopment powers is not a vote to give county commissioners carte blanche on redevelopment powers across the county. It is for that district that you have just shown right there. So once this vote is taken, it's done. The redevelopment powers are not going to be able to be pulled again for another project according to the legislation. So I know there's been a little confusion about that. I've heard several people seeing that posted out there in social media and that sort of thing, but just as a clarification, and the ballot language, in my opinion, makes it clear that it is for this project and this project alone, and certainly ask everybody on the call to help us communicate that as well.
And redevelopment powers, from an example that people may be familiar with, Atlantic Station, also a TAD, as well as the Battery. So if you've gone to a Braves game, it's a very similar setup. So Commissioner Semanson, anything in closing?
You know, I think we covered most of it. I'm also starting to look at some of the questions that were submitted, and I think some of you others, I think we're going to have those available for afterwards. I think we've covered the bases. And James, you made an important point that I was hoping that we could squeeze in here somewhere. So thanks for picking up on that. This is limited just to the gathering. That is kind of atypical across the state. This puts a lot more guardrails in terms of what the county can do without going through another round of legislation to open up other opportunities. But I think it will be a great opportunity for the county to see what what redevelopment powers can bring, because there are various types of projects that are done via this means, and so I think it has the potential to be very interesting for us, and I think it's a way to deliver some potentially in this project and others potentially down the road, if there were any, to deliver the type of amenities that our community is looking for that the county would not itself build.
Now, Mr. Krause, I know you've spent a good bit of time out in the community, listening to people about the project. Is there anything you want to share in particular about how people feel about it?
Well, yes, Sharon, and everywhere that I've gone and everywhere anybody that I've talked to is very enthusiastic about our project. I've yet to encounter anybody that has anything negative to say. I think in closing, I think it's important that sometimes to state the obvious again, and James, you brought it up, Laura, you brought it up, and I'm reading, and I'm not going to stand here and read this for everybody, but a vote for yes is very, very specifically says that it's strictly for this 100 acres. I think that's what's real important. And most importantly, and I am asking, I'm asking people to vote yes, because a yes vote for the TAD is a positive step forward.
And with that arena, there will also be the opportunity for high school graduations and other world-class events and
concerts and
that most folks have to drive into the city to experience. So right in your
backyard. We believe that we'll have probably 150 nights of entertainment a year in that arena.
I think that's a good way to end it. Any additional questions we will again answer. We will post along with the recording. We really appreciate everybody being on the call. Tell your friends and family once the recording goes out. We will let you know. We'll post on social media. If you're not following us on social media, please go to thegathering@southforsyth.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We'll post there, as well as you can sign up to be an insider and be the first to get information on any changes, hopefully positive changes on the development. And again, we thank you to the speakers, Mr. Krause, Mr. McCoy, and Commissioner Semanson. We really appreciate your time and energy on this effort and education of the community. And thank you, everybody, for being here.
I want to say thank you to you also, and thank you, James, and thank you, Laura, very much for your help on tonight's webinar.
Yeah. Sure, and I'll add, if anybody wants to have a question, would like to have a further dialogue with me directly, this is a project that is within the confines of District 5. And so you may have lingering questions about the county's participation or those other types of things in the project that are not related directly to the TAD. So I would give you all my email address here. It's L.O. Semanson, spelled S-E-M-A-N-S-O-N, at Forsythco, FORSYTHCO.com. So again, that's L.O. Semanson at Forsyth.com. No weird dots or anything like that. That's my email address. Feel free to reach out, and happy to have a dialogue offline with you as well.
Great. All right. With that, we will conclude the webinar, and thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.